Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for taking the time out to come along today to hear a bit about what's going on, but importantly to have a conversation about things that are important to you. We have Slido. You'll recall Slido from last year. If you're shy, you can ask a question through Slido. But you've also said to us you'd like to have a conversation on the floor as well. So we'll start off with Q&A from the floor, and we'll move on to Slido in the course of the next hour or so. There's a few things I'd like to cover, and also we're going to talk a little bit about the Student Experience Programme. But we'll start with what's become a bit of a tradition now, which is to introduce ourselves, the Professional Services Leadership Team here in the university. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce you to a new senior leadership colleague, April McMahon, who's our Vice Principal for Learning, Teaching and our students, who's here with us as well today to talk about the Student Experience Programme. April, would you like to stand up and say hello?
I would. I'll see if I can get my microphone to work. Simon says, oh, this is the academic microphone. And I'm not sure if it quite is.
Press it once, that's it.
There we go, we're all sorted. So yeah, I'm April, I'm the new Vice President Teaching, Learning and Students, and I'll be saying a little bit later about the Student Experience Programme, and actually about what a pleasure it is to find that I'm part of the team that's going to be delivering something that is a real benefit for our students and for our colleagues. I got here on the 1st of October. I've been shadowing Clive Agnew for the month of October, and it's been brilliant. He has been so generous. Those of you who know Clive, that will not come as any surprise. But he's been brilliant with his time, with introductions, helping me understand what's going on here, because you do learn very much from the person that you're taking over from. So I'm just starting to, if not get my feet under the table, at least I think I know where the table is. So it's brilliant to be here today. Thank you.
That's wonderful to have you here as well. Thanks, April. Okay, so we'll start off introducing PS colleagues. Start with Malcolm.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Whitehouse, Chief Information Officer, responsible for information technology across the university.
It's exciting, this, isn't it? Hi, I'm Vicky Goddard, Director of Operations for Biology, Medicine and Health, so responsible for all of PS across the faculty and for interfacing with Central PS.
I'm Richard Screeton. I'm Head of Alumni Engagement in the Division of Development and Alumni Relations. I'm deputising for Kate White.
Hello, I'm Diana Hampson. I'm Director of Estates and Facilities.
Hello, I'm Andrew Millen, Deputy Director of Human Resources, deputising for Karen Heaton.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Bretherton. I'm here on behalf of Matt Atkin, Director of Planning.
Hi, I'm Sinead Hesp. I'm the Director of Legal Affairs and Board Secretariat.
Hi, I'm Chris Presser. I'm the University Librarian.
Hello, Andrew Walsh. I'm Director of Research and Business Engagement.
Hello, I'm Hannah Rundle. I'm the Director of Faculty Operations for Humanities.
Hi, I'm Wayne Keating, Head of Teaching, Learning and Student Experience in FSE, here for Rachel Brealey.
Hello, I'm Simon Merriwest. I'm the Director for the Student Experience.
Hello, I'm Sally Sykes. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing.
We're still going. I'm David Barker, Director of Compliance and Risk.
Good afternoon, I'm David Souter. I'm Interim Director of Finance until the new Permanent Director is appointed in the new year.
Great. Thank you all very much. And last but not least, great. I hope that's really useful for you. I feel, you might think it's a bit corny in some ways, but we're a very big university. We don't always know who we work with, and we see these names or hear these names, and they might seem a bit faceless. And to me, it's really important that we get to know each other, and you know who PS leadership team are. And if you see them on campus, or if you see me on campus, stop us and say hello and have a conversation. Okay, so I'm going to cover a few things before we talk about the student experience program itself. The first thing to say is that all the wonderful work that has gone into developing our new strategic plan is now coming to fruition. The final version of the plan goes to our board on the 20th of November for final sign-off. And the board has been heavily engaged in the development of the strategic plan as well over the last 12 months or so. And so we're not expecting any surprises, at least I hope I'm not tempting fate in saying that. But we're expecting it to be signed off in November. And then we will launch it beginning with the heads meeting early in January. And you'll see more detail around it over the coming months as well, as we develop more detail around the 7 themes that you should all be very familiar with now that constitute our new strategic plan. As you'll recall, one of those themes is our people and our values. And I wanted to just remind you again of some of the priorities that sit within our people, our values, because they're very important. B, they also respond to a lot of the feedback that we had through the strategic plan. And in my mind, they're at the heart of delivering success for our university in the years to come. And there are 5 key priorities in our people, our values, and I just want to remind you about them again today. I'm not going to give you a lot more detail about them because we're moving into that phase now where we're developing the detailed implementation plans, and you'll hear more about those as they are developed over the coming months. But I want to remind you of what those 5 priorities are within our people and our values. The first one is great people doing great things. Actually, the student experience program is a component of that. It's about helping all of us to do what we're really good at doing. And that means addressing some of our organizational issues, some of our process issues, some of our systems issues, some of the ways in which we work together. And so that's one of our 5 key priorities. The second is well-being. And, you know, there's lots of really good practice around well-being in our university, but it's not consistent. And there's a lot more that we could and should be doing around well-being for you, for our students, for all of us, for all members of the university community. And particularly at a time of uncertainty, you know, well-being becomes even more important and can be forgotten about when we're dealing with lots of other day-to-day priorities. So well-being is the second priority that will feature prominently in our people and our values. EDI, equality, diversity, and inclusion, has been a priority for this university over the years. But notwithstanding that, it's still clear that there's an awful lot more work that we need to do to be a truly inclusive environment in which everybody can feel that they're enabled and empowered to be successful. So doing more work, more tangible work around equality, diversity, and inclusion in our university is going to be a third priority in our people and our values. The fourth is ensuring that we have an environment and facilities that support all of us to be successful in our university. And you'll hear more from Malcolm and Diana about that in due course. But we recognize that to be really good at what we want to do, to be good at what we want to be, we need to have the right environment and the right facilities. And the university has invested very significantly in facilities over the last decade, over £1 billion. As we move into a new strategic plan, a new 10-year period, I hope that we'll find ways of continuing something like that sort of level of investment. The fifth priority, and something that's very close to my heart, and I know to all of yours as well, is our values. We had a piece of work that we undertook through the summer, spring, summer, and through the summer vacation to rediscover our shared values in the university. And that work has really been very successful, and you'll see what those new values are that we have not created or dreamt up, but they are the result of engaging with colleagues right across the university to understand what's important to you, to all of us. What are those core shared values that should drive a values-led university? And at a time in which we're embarking on a new strategic plan, pursuing new opportunities, dealing with lots of uncertainties and change, having clear understanding about what our values are and holding ourselves to account for those values, to me, is at the heart of a successful university. So that's the new strategic plan, and particularly our people and our values. I just want to mention that we haven't forgotten about the staff survey. A lot of work has gone on right across the university since the survey was published to think about what are the key priorities that we should respond to. What messages have we received and identified through the staff survey that we need to respond to collectively in the university. And there's a workshop in the next couple of weeks where we're looking at plans in PS and across our faculties. But there are three main themes that will drive our focus and our attention arising from the staff survey. And those three are communications, unsurprisingly. Communications continues to be a challenge in a very big, complex organisation, but also SLT, senior leadership team engagement across our university. You told us we need to do more, we need to be more visible, we need to engage with colleagues, not just to communicate with colleagues, and that's going to be a commitment from our SLT going forward. Maintaining a positive working environment for our staff is the second priority, and the third is how we manage change. Well, you've heard what I've already said about what the priorities are within our people, our values, how our environment and our facilities. We recognise that they're important to our well-being and to our overall success as a university. They will continue to be a priority. But how we manage change has actually taken up a lot of our time and my time in the 12 months since I've been here. And I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made to revisit our governance of change and how we manage change in this university. We appointed Beth Dodd, who can't be here with us today, but she'll be at the open meeting on Friday, as our new Director of Transformation in our university. And Beth brings with her significant experience of change in sectors outside higher education, but also within higher education. And Beth is leading a newly rejuvenated Programme Management Office, which alongside new governance arrangements will, I'm confident, improve the way that we manage change in our university. The Student Experience Programme is the first programme where we're applying these new methodologies, but we are applying them as we go along. So SEP is not going to be perfect, I'll say that to you now, but I hope you are going to see some significant improvements in the way that we manage change as you hear more about how we're going to roll out SEP. I could say quite a lot about the external environment and depress everyone, but I won't. I mean, we all know what's going on with the elections, with the economy, with Brexit, or we all don't know what's going on. There's a lot of uncertainty externally. We're also facing uncertainty within our universities, and here in our university we will see industrial action in the coming weeks. That will be difficult for everyone. And I mean everyone when I say it will be difficult, but we will all, I think, all do our best to mitigate the impact of the action on the student experience, but also on staff more generally. Maybe we might have some discussion about that in the Q&A session in a moment. So those are the main things that I wanted to talk about. I'll hand over now to Simon and to April to talk about the Student Experience Programme, and then we'll take Q&A on everything once they've completed their session.
So thank you, Patrick. So April and I thought I think this is the first open meeting since we brought a number of different programs together to form the Student Experience Programme. And I thought just give you a quick kind of refresh of some of that. And part of the reason for doing that, as Patrick's alluded to there, was from a governance perspective. Rather than running a number of separate projects, bringing those together into one helps to ensure that actually you're going to maximise the benefits coming out of each of those, rather than the risk of those operating a little bit more in isolation. And the student experience programme, in bringing together a number of separate projects, has some different elements to it. So it's important, I think, to stress that this is not merely an IT project, which is a bit of a myth, I think, that sometimes you hear quite often about this programme. There is a very strong IT element within it, there is no doubt. But we should also remember, of course, back when we had a separate student lifecycle project, significant numbers of colleagues across the university, many hundreds, spent over a year redesigning many of our processes that support both student experience and the staff experience as it relates to students as well. And that's a key component of this programme, those redesigned processes. And then, of course, there's a people element to that as well, and thinking about how we are organised within the university to support the student experience. And that's not just from a professional services perspective, that's also in terms of many academic colleagues, of course, have a big role to play with respect to students. And some of those interfaces are important and will be considered as part of the student experience programme. So structures and people and the way that we're organised, the way that we interact with our students will be a part of this. And of course, from a people perspective, the first phase of any sort of changes to roles and structures happened around, or started around this time last year, with the so-called at the time new leadership model changes. This was a new professional services leadership structure across the schools, the faculties, and principally the DSE in the central directorates. So we now have this new combined programme, student experience programme. Patrick himself is the programme chair, so he chairs the programme board, the senior-most governance group. April is the executive sponsor, and I am the programme director, so sort of taking day-to-day responsibility for the programme. There is if you haven't seen it, we've signposted it quite a lot, there is a new website with the programme on there, so you can go to StaffNet and find that. It's staffnet/SEP, you can probably guess. And we started now moving at quite some pace with a number of thematic areas across the student experience. We have 11 thematic areas, and the first 2 of those that we're particularly concentrating on, looking at all of those aspects I just described, are around student marketing recruitment and around application and admissions. And if you go online, you'll be able to find all of those themes there and the descriptions of those and what's within the scope of each of those. I think it's important to spend a little bit of time on why we're doing all of this and what the drivers are for some of these changes. And then I'll talk about a few of the benefits in a second. I said earlier on, this is not fundamentally an IT project, and I stand by that assertion. However, there's no getting away from the fact that one of the most significant drivers, but by no means the only one, was the fact that our registry system that we use, we have all of our current 40,000 students and many thousands of previous ones on campus solutions, was coming to the end of its supported life. And so there was a significant driver which we had to address in terms of refreshing and upgrading campus solutions. And so I guess to some extent it's inevitable that people feel as though this is quite an IT-heavy project, if not an IT-led project. Campus solutions as well. Previously we had 150,000 lines of customized code. We're moving to a new version with new functionality and with redesigned process to take out much of that function, that sort of bespoke design within it, again to make things work a little easier. Well-being is, and Patrick's talked about this in the context of the staff survey and Our People, Our Values, is another key driver, both from the staff perspective in terms of all of us in the room that support students and much of the feedback that people have given about workloads, about clarity of who's doing what and sort of passing things around the university and trying to support students where we're not always clear about who's best placed to do that. But also, of course, from the student perspective, and I'll come back to that in terms of some of the benefits in a second. We have a huge amount of data in this university about our students, and we probably tap into and usefully use a very, very small percentage of that in any useful way. We do lots of reporting, we run lots of reports that tell us lots of things, but we have a huge amount of untapped data. And one of the elements of this program is really to put in place the foundations to be able to really analyse what that data is telling us about our students. And April, you might want to comment on that in a second, in some of April's own priorities around what some of that data is already telling us from a teaching excellence framework perspective, and also in terms of particular groups of students where we know are not perhaps achieving their full potential to the same extent as some of their peers. And data in this program will help us in that. Yes, we want to be more efficient and effective as well in terms of what we do. We all, I know, have great frustration at times with some of the very clunky process that we use. We're very paper heavy still in the student space, and this program will help enormously with much of that. There's a lot of manual entry, double entry of information and so on, which takes a lot of time from all of us and is frustrating. And then back to the staff piece, again, a couple of other points. Often it is said that there are roles in different parts of the university that appear to colleagues to be broadly similar, but yet appear to be graded differently. Job descriptions that might look broadly similar, and it's confusing as to who's doing what. Job titles that aren't always clear as to whether that's the right person to contact and so on. And there's a real opportunity here for us to address a number of those concerns as well. Now, over and above those drivers is also a financial sustainability driver. And Patrick has recently, and hopefully you will have seen this, so Patrick posted a blog post about 2 weeks ago, I think, Patrick, talking about changing the university more generally, but talking about SEP specifically, and being very open and upfront about some of the challenges in terms of the university's financial sustainability, the target that he has agreed to in terms of savings reduction for the professional services over the next few years, and that's £15 million. And we've also been very open again in that blog, and it's been published previously, that the SEP programme is expected to contribute at least £3.5 million to that £15 million target. So trying to be open about that. It is one of the drivers of contributing to the university's financial sustainability, but it is by no means the only driver. Let me just return, just before I hand back to April, to some of the benefits of this programme. I'm just going to focus on a few things from a student perspective, given it's a student experience programme first and foremost. Just a number of things that we will be able to do that I think will be enhanced by this programme. So, for instance, we are introducing technology within SEP that will allow us to capture an interest of a potential applicant to the university when we go out to schools visits, or they might email into the university or put a query on the website, whatever it might be. We will very shortly be able to capture that and follow that through and start to use that as a conversion tool and to send more bespoke communications to students about their interest in the university, rather than some of the more blanket messaging that we have to do at the moment. We've already relaunched My Manchester. Now, My Manchester, for those that don't know, is the sort of digital front face for students in the university. We've relaunched that. And that is now in a place that allows us to start building on top of that some of the other elements coming out of SEP and beyond that to provide more online digital services for our students. Within that, obviously, a number of different processes and forms and things that are currently manual bits of paper students have to print out or email around will be fully online, and they'll be able to track the progress of those. So an academic appeal form, for instance. It's also an opportunity, and April's going to talk a little bit about the importance, I think, of working with students on this programme. There's a real opportunity here to learn from our students how they'd like to see some of these services designed. So just some of the key questions around, what hours we would want to see our support offices open, where they'd like to see services placed. Some of those sorts of things are going to be quite important. And as I've already hinted in terms of well-being, a far greater emphasis here on student well-being and student support. We've already done an awful lot in that place. But a couple of the things that have already come forward for the Student Experience Programme, through the new leadership model, we are putting in place a new advice and response team to work across the universities and complement that's already provided by school support offices. And you may also have seen a piece of technology that's been deployed, again through SEP in the last few weeks, which is Big White Wall, which is an online 24/7 mental health support service. It's been funded by an external donor, actually. And we've already got nearly 1,000 staff and students in the university who've signed up to that. So that's another deliverable that SEP has just landed. I'm going to pass over to April. I think you probably want just to follow on some thoughts.
Lovely, thank you very much, and thanks again for allowing me to be an honorary member of the PS leadership team today. I came into the university in October, and you were in that hiatus, that period between everybody's talking about the Student Life Cycle project and various other projects, and starting to get this perception that it was all somehow going to morph into this bigger thing called the Student Experience Programme, which it duly has now done. And the thing that really impressed me was the way that learning was already being embedded about what hadn't gone as well as it might have with that previous set of projects. And notably, the atmosphere I came into was around making sure that we had the governance right, making sure that we were really transparent about the drivers, making sure that we articulate the benefits. And I think everybody would put their hands up and say that didn't go as well as it could have with the previous set of projects. And in particular, standing here and listening to Simon rehearsing just some of the benefits that have already flowed from what was the Student Life Cycle project, I wonder how many people in the university could actually count some of those on their fingers and say, yeah, you know, these are the things that we've already delivered. And it's incredibly important that we focus on that. We have to be upfront about the fact that this is also about financial sustainability. And it isn't fair to anybody to pretend that that doesn't play a part in what we're doing. But we're not trying to make extra surplus here to hide it in an old sock under the mattress. We want to reinvest it for the benefit of colleagues and students and to build a better university. And if we can look at all of these benefits in that light, I think we'll understand far more about what this programme is for. So when I said earlier it had been an absolute pleasure to find that I was coming in to be executive sponsor of the Student Experience Programme, I absolutely mean that. It's not just a question of last one in the door, you get the Student Experience Programme. I would have been in an orderly queue to be standing up here in any case and saying, yeah, this is something that we can do and we should do. The really important thing, apart from transparency and articulating the benefits and being upfront about the drivers, for me, is that we should remember that this is everybody's programme. It is a University of Manchester programme. It is not an IT project. It is not a PS project. It is everybody's project. And we have to, at the next stage, be really clear about how we are going to get academic input, and we're already working on that, and how we are going to get student input. And I think we've got a real chance there to model and try out some means of student engagement and student partnership that we might not have tried before. So around the university, and some of you will have worked with these folks, we have quite a number of our excellent students in internships, in part-time jobs. We should be bringing students in, not just those who have the luxury of time to be able to volunteer, but those who actually need to choose between giving us their good ideas and pulling a shift to Aldi, for instance. And I'd rather that they were helping us with the Student Experience Programme in some cases if we're able to make that happen. So we've got to look at how we can resource bringing students in to actually work in partnership with us. So academic partnership, student partnership, working with PS colleagues, those I think are really, really important for us to get right now. That plays to a range of priorities that I'm starting to develop after about 5 weeks in the job. So these could be subject to change. So I'm really interested in looking at student partnership. You might have got that impression already. We have got a really good record of talking about consulting students, but we're just starting to talk about partnership with students and about co-creation. And that's the direction that we really need to go in. Our students are the experts at being students now. I was an expert at being a student at some unspecified point in the last century, but I'm not an expert at it now. And that isn't about age, because we've got marvellous mature students that we need to learn from too. But we've got to find out from the people who are living it what it's like to live it. And I tell you, for one thing, they've got much more complicated lives and many more pressures than was the case when I was a student back in that privileged era when you didn't pay a penny. And actually, I had more in maintenance grant because I was first in family to go to university, and we didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So I had more money than I'd ever seen. So our students, do you know what? They're not in that position. And we need to look at how we've got to fit our WP aspirations and our access and participation plan targets by bringing in fantastic young people who might feel, I shouldn't be in that environment, it's not for me. Now, to do that, we need to help them to build their student experiences. And wherever possible, you will find me talking about student experiences in the plural. Because each experience is as unique as that student is. And we don't build it for them and give it to them. We put them in a dirty, great campus full of Lego, carefully curated Lego, and we say to them, build it yourselves. Build it to match the way that you are and the experience that you need to get you where you want to go. Now, to resource that, we need to use the opportunities of SEP to automatize and make easy and make consistent the stuff that can be, to allow the things that are quirky and magnificent and different and personal to be that. And if we can deliver that out of this project, then I think it will be incredibly important for our students. And it's important for staff too. So last point, it is really, really important that we move away from some of our colleagues having jobs that actually involve taking incomplete data from one system and recoding it or retyping it into another one, and then we don't use it properly anyway. We want people to have fulfilling jobs, and we want people to be able to contribute to improving experiences for our students. So not an IT project, but IT involved. Important for us to articulate the benefits. Really vital for us to work together as a community, PS, academic students and alumni and other stakeholders together, feeding into what this can be and what it should be. And I really look forward to working with you on that.
Thanks, April. Thank you very much. And thanks to Simon as well. Okay, we've got just under half an hour to have some Q&A. We've already got some Slido questions, but before I turn to those, are there any questions that anyone would like to ask from the floor? Beresford, where would we be if we didn't have a question from you from the floor? Go on, sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. He's shy.
Okay, hi, I'm Beresford Edwards. I'm from the main library. So for over a year now, the university has been seeking to adopt a more impactful, integrated approach towards EDI, equality, diversity, and inclusion, particularly demonstrating an understanding that student experience and well-being is inextricably linked to staff experience and well-being. So Patrick, can you provide us with an update on any decision and/or update and/or progress, made into this? And if not, would you be able to chase that up and get back to us, please?
So the progress we've made is progress we've made against our existing action plans. And as I said, we have made progress, but nothing like as much as we all really want to make. what I was describing in our new strategic plan and our people, our values as a component of, at the heart of our new strategic plan, is that EDI is also a key priority within our people, our values. And that's a statement of intent. We are looking at how can we do things that have a real impact, not just producing an action plan that we look at a year later and think, well, that didn't work, we'll try something else. We are trying to find new ways of making a real difference across our university. And that, you know, you've seen our annual reports, you've seen our pay gap reports. They're not where we want them to be. And it's because of that EDI is featuring as such an important priority in our new plan. We've got to work out how we make it meaningful in the coming months. Hello, a lady there, and then a gentleman over there next. So get.
Hello.
Hi.
Given that change management is a key theme for the SCP, I think,
Yeah.
how are the senior leadership team going to ensure that staff are fully and properly consulted and listened to and have opportunities to feed into working on change management so that we have perhaps a better result in the next staff survey?
Yeah.
With staff believing that change within the university is then managed well?
Well, that's a really important question, and that's at the heart of how we're going to do and are beginning to do already change differently. And there are a number of key components to it. First of all, there has to be a commitment to engaging with staff and to listening to staff and allowing them to influence and shape the change projects. That's the first thing. The second thing is to allow time for that proper engagement to happen. Now, I said SEP is our first sort of guinea pig of the new model. As a result of that, cohort 1, we're having to move at with pace. But with cohort 2 and further change programs, you'll see that there's a lot of time built in for proper engagement with staff to enable them to shape the program. Even with cohort 1, we've got teams working together now to shape what the new model looks like. So that involves engaging with staff directly to develop the detailed design of the new program in the future. As I say, that's critical. I mean, we have obviously got benefits that we identify that we need to deliver for each program, but it's how we go about designing them that's key to success, and that we allow sufficient time to design them well and implement them well. And that involves ensuring that we engage with colleagues properly. And we also recognize that, you know, sometimes colleagues don't hear about change until very late in the day. Again, like Simon mentioned the Viewpoint blog about SEP a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about things much earlier now than we did maybe in the past. I think another aspect to help staff engage with the change program is to prepare staff for change itself. I think I've talked last year about higher education. You wouldn't think it now, but over the last decade or so, you know, we've been fairly well protected from austerity and what's happened in other sectors. And I think as a result of that, maybe we didn't have the sort of resilience that we need to have to deal with change and to find the opportunities that come with change rather than being focused on the negatives that come along with change. So allowing staff time to prepare and be ready for change is also a key important part of the program. Yes, sir. It should be on. If it's red, then it's on. Top.
There we go.
That's it.
There we go. Yeah.
Don't turn it off when you're finished with it.
I won't turn it off. Will accessibility be a key performance indicator for improving the student experience?
Yes is a short answer, but Simon, do you want to add to that, or April?
Are you talking in the kind of digital context or physical
both.
accessibility?
Yes, so both physical and digital.
Yeah, I mean, yes is absolutely the answer. And, you know, we've started looking at, I talked about the wellbeing support earlier on and our kind of offer there. I mean, one of the things we did a few years ago was to bring together disability support and a number of the other kind of campus life type of functions into a single team, because there's a lot of kind of crossover. You can't necessarily separate those things out. But also from a digital accessibility point of view, we recognise that for some people, obviously putting everything online isn't optimal. And we're really giving that some careful thought and thinking about how we make things accessible in all sorts of different ways. But yeah, no, absolutely, it's absolutely implicitly a driver there within the well-being, but actually we might want to think about bringing it out more strongly.
Okay. Yes, lady there in the middle.
Hi there. I just wanted to follow up on the idea of student focus, because I think something that's not really well articulated in this is that we do these jobs because we want to contribute to student success and to their amazing experience and to them becoming these quirky, extraordinary people that April talks about. And I think if we fully understood that these things will bring benefits to students, then that explains and helps us understand why things have to change within our world. We don't want things to change in our world just because things have to change. We want to understand that it's part of a process to make things better for the students of this institution. And I think that's not always, I don't know, that recognition of why we all work in this space and what we gain from working in this space isn't always properly, it doesn't come back to us from the senior leadership team.
No, look, I think that's a really fair point, and it's well made. I think we're sometimes guilty of, particularly at the centre where we see things on a regular basis, we're guilty of assuming that because a business plan that was signed off 2.5 years ago described what the benefits would be, that everyone knows what the benefits will be. You know, that's not the case. That's really not the case. So you're already beginning to see, I hope, more regular communications about SEP. There may come a point where you'll go, I'm sick of hearing about it. But actually, we're a long way from that yet. We do need to reiterate and remind colleagues on a regular basis why we're doing things. You know, we can be so focused on the how we're doing things. We forget sometimes to talk about the why, or we just assume people know what the why is. So, and April, with her fresh pair of eyes coming in, keep saying, well, why are we doing this? If I'm a student, why are you doing this? And I think that's been really helpful for the whole program. I'm not trying to avoid the Slido questions. I am trying to make sure we otherwise I'm going to have my back to you reading the Slido questions. I want to make sure we cover all the questions from the floor first. Hello.
Hello, it's Christian from the library.
Hi, Christian.
Fantastic to hear your the focus that's going to be on staff well-being and student well-being. I think the last staff survey brought up that staff harassment, staff bullying is still a big issue in the university. I think awareness of the zero tolerance has gone up, but the numbers of people claiming to be bullied or harassed has stayed at about 5% in the last 3 surveys. What are you going to try this time that's going to be new to kind of tackle this problem that doesn't seem to be going away?
I think one thing we can do that maybe we've not done enough of before is to call it out, actually, and to empower colleagues to call it out around the university. I come across examples of poor behaviour between colleagues, and somebody will recount it to me, and I'll say, well, okay, what did you do about it? Did you say anything? And they say, well, no. And for me, actually, we all have a responsibility to call it out. And we've got to demonstrate that from the centre, from the senior leadership, out to all of our leaders. So if there was one thing I would say we should do and do more of it. Let's call it out. Our students had a similar campaign, and they're reinvigorating that campaign. We should do the same for all of our staff. Okay, you're going to make me go to Slido, aren't you? So, the closure of the cafes on the North Campus seem to be at odds with our people and our values, well-being and environment and facilities. Well, they're not. It's not at odds. And we're not just closing cafes on North Campus. We've closed cafes across the campus. And we've closed them because they're not being used. They're just simply not being used. We lose £1 million a year through keeping facilities open that are not being used. So I don't see how it's incompatible with our people, our values, to keep something open that's costing £1 million of, let's just say, tuition fee income. You know, we have a responsibility to do things well, and that's not doing things well. So what we're committed to doing is providing facilities that our staff and students want and will use, and to doing it in a sustainable way. If you disagree with me or think we've got it wrong, by all means tell me. I'm more than happy to hear. I don't like closing things, but it seems to me it has to be the right thing to do. But you're going to...
I'm going to question that in the ones that we are keeping open appear to be going to private companies that are charging an awful lot for the food that they're supplying. And students would use the big cafe, especially in the tin can. You go in during term time, they were extremely busy. They seem a lot quieter now. You've got all the private outlets.
I think there's only one that's gone to a private company, Benugos. We don't have a plan to put them out to private companies at all. We're committed to making sure we provide affordable facilities on site. But look, the harsh reality is that staff and students are walking with their feet. They're going to other private providers that we now have on campus. There's a choice on and around campus that we didn't have before. And the queues in some of those outlets is quite long. So I think we just got to respond to what people want. Okay, the second question, this seems to be about the two pension schemes, and I'm not sure what the connection is. In view of the closure of UMSS to new members of staff, can I ask how much this university is prepared to pay towards USS? I think they're two completely different questions. Yeah? UMSS is not closed to new staff. I'm looking at Andrew. It is closed. We have a different scheme. Do you want to just explain that? Sorry, I should have. Thanks, Sinead.
Thanks. So yes. Is this working?
No. Press it on.
Sorry. Yeah, so UMSS did close to new staff at the start of this year. In its place, we've put a defined contribution scheme for support staff, which is called Pension Saver. And what I can say about that is that the contributions that the university has committed to making to each member of staff within Pension Saver is the same as the contributions to UMSS, depending on what contributions individual employees want to make. So it's about giving them choice about whether they want to make less contributions, which many of them do, or more contributions. But it's absolutely one of the driving principles when designing pension choice and pension saver was to ensure that the cost envelope was not to be reduced. The university was committed to making the same level of contributions as it previously did to UMSS staff, and anything that it is saving currently is going directly into the UMSS pension deficit to make sure that it's ring-fenced for that as well, and ensure that that's sustainable for staff who are currently still in it.
Thanks, Sinead. And as for USS itself, we don't decide what the employer contributes to USS. That's a decision that's made across the sector through UUK. Our contribution rate, as individual contribution rates, is going up, has gone up now to 21.1%. It's forecast to go up to 24%. in 2020, but that's subject to the 2020 valuation. And at the moment, the prospects for the 2020 valuation apparently are not very good. It's likely that the deficit will grow further. I think the challenge we've got with USS is that it appears to be a pension scheme that's not financially sustainable. And I know there are differing views about that, from it being in surplus to being in significant deficit. But ultimately, the trustees and the pensions regulator hold sway over what the pension scheme should look like in order to be sustainable. I know this is a really emotive subject. It's difficult for everyone involved. I recognize it's difficult as well for individuals, that individual contribution rates are going up as well and are projected to go up further. It's difficult to see where this gets finally resolved. We're all awaiting the JEP2 report, but I don't know whether JEP2 is going to identify the magic bullet either. Are there any other questions about pensions while we're on the subject? Do you all think you're being well informed about USS and the pensions and what it all means or might mean or doesn't mean? You're all looking at me blankly. No? Okay. Who would you nominate for an Outstanding Alumni Award? If I was flippant, Benedict Cumberbatch for reinvigorating Sherlock Holmes. If I was really nerdy, Bridget Byrne, head of Dorothy Byrne, who's head of Channel 4 News and gave the Cockcroft lecture recently. But that would be nerdy. Richard's going to tell us.
The nominations for this are open at the minute. If people do have suggestions, the details are on StaffNet if you want to put a nomination forward.
Did you get that? Who have you got? Somebody give us a nomination from the room. Who? She's not an alumna. Mind you, in today's age, does that seem to matter anymore? Any more nominations? Or from the front row? It's a difficult question. I think I'd like my Benedict Cumberbatch at the minute. Malcolm, IT.
Where's Michelle? Can't quite see you. Oh, hi. Right, so we've had a project to look at this. Anyone know how many survey tools we have? Yeah, at least 20. Some we use a lot, some we use inappropriately. SurveyMonkey is quite common. It's highly insecure. We put lots of personal data on it. We actually use SurveyMonkey to do things like mitigating circumstances management, the most sensitive data, and anyone could get into it. So we need to fix it. We've got a project to look at rationalising it, but it's slow moving because it's not a high priority. Qualtrics costs about $3,000 for a license for a limited number of people. So I'm interested in the specific about that, and I'm happy to sort of take it offline. But if we'd like to look at moving it forwards, again, then let's get a few people together with Michelle, and we'll reinvigorate it because it is an important subject, but from my perspective, it's a challenge because of security.
Great, thanks, Malcolm. We have time for one more question. Or are you all questioned out? Okay, good. Well, thank you all very much. I hope you found the hour very useful. Any ideas or suggestions, drop me or my colleagues a line. See you all soon. Thank you.
You around